One standard year later, the Great Hall of the Galactic Forum was full. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their murmurs a low, buzzing hum. The air shimmered with holograms and translation fields. Today, everyone was watching one particular platform. A Zarkonian delegation had arrived. They did not wear the gleaming armor of soldiers. They wore simple, dark robes of a rough fabric. They moved slowly, without the old arrogance. At their head was not Ambassador Talvek, but the engineer, Kira. Her skin still had faint gray traces of the dust that had covered her world. Her eyes were older, and they held a weight that had not been there before. Across the hall, the human delegation entered. Admiral Park Yuri led them. Her uniform was simple, without many medals. The only decoration was a small black pin on her collar, a simple rod with a single serpent, the symbol of medical service. Behind her walked General Kim Dae-young, now retired, as an advisor. His face was calm, unreadable. The proceedings began. The Galactic Chancellor, a being of light and sound, spoke of the grave matter before them. The destruction of the GHS Nightingale. The Zarkonian response, which they called the Great Silence. The floor was given to the Zarkonian delegation. Kira stepped forward. She did not use holograms. She placed a simple, old-fashioned data slate on the podium. The hall quieted. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice clear. "The Zarkonian hegemony comes before you not with excuses. We come with facts and with a choice." She looked directly at the humans. 1 year ago, a ship of our people committed an act of cowardice. We called it tactical. It was murder. We murdered healers. We murdered children. We did not know their names. She tapped the slate. A list appeared in the air above her. It started to scroll. Name after name. Human names. Lee Jun, Park Sumin, Choi Min, Kim Hana, over 2,000 of them. Next to each name was a small piece of data, their age, their role, a fragment of biodata. "We have spent the last 6 months learning these names," Kira said. Her voice wavered, but she continued. "While our lights were off and our machines were dust, we read about them. Captain Lee Jun, who wrote poetry. Head Surgeon Park Sumin, who grew flowers in a lab to cheer her patients. Nurse Anya Petrova, who sang to the children." She paused, letting the silence hang. "We learned them, and in learning them, we learned what we had destroyed. Not a potential troop carrier, a piece of goodness, a piece of your soul, as your general said." She looked out at the silent, watching galaxy. "Our punishment was not invasion. It was silence. It was sitting in the dark with the memory of what we had done. We were given life by the same hands that took our power. Human food. Human medicine. It was a mercy that felt like fire. It burned away our pride." Kira took a deep breath. Therefore, the Zarkonian High Command, in its first act after the restoration of basic communication, has voted unanimously. She held up a crystal chip, a new kind, made from a different formula. "We have ratified a new permanent addition to the Galactic Conventions. We propose it bears the name of the ship we destroyed. We call it the Nightingale Accord." A schematic appeared. It was simple and brutal. It designated any attack on a registered medical, humanitarian, or aid vessel as the highest crime in galactic law. Not a war crime, but a civilizational crime. The enforcement clause was stark. Any species committing such an act would be immediately and totally cut off from the galactic network trade, travel, communication. The sentence would be carried out by a unified fleet, led by a rotation of species. The humans were listed as the first to hold the authority. "We do not ask for your forgiveness," Kira finished, her eyes finding Yuri's. "We ask you to hold us to this. We ask you to hold everyone to this, so that no healer, anywhere, ever has to die because of someone's mistake. She stepped back. The hall was utterly silent. No one had expected this. They had expected denials, or weak apologies, or legal arguments. They had not expected a full surrender of moral authority. The Chancellor turned to the humans. Admiral Yuri, your response. Yuri stood. She did not move to the podium. She simply stood by her seat. She looked at Kira, at the list of names still hanging in the air. She thought of her cousin's laugh. Earth acknowledges the Nightingale Accord, Yuri said, her voice carrying clearly. We accept the role of First Warden. We will do this not for vengeance, but for the memory of those we lost. So their silence will protect others. She sat down. It was over. The accord was accepted by acclamation. The galaxy, shocked by the Zarkonian humility and the human restraint, voted yes without a single objection. Weeks later on Earth, the seasons were changing. Admiral Yuri walked through a quiet park in Seoul. It was not a military park. It was a simple public garden. In the center was a new memorial. It was not a statue of a hero. It was a long, low wall of black stone, like a smooth, quiet river. On it, names were carved. All the names from the Nightingale. General Kim Dae-jung was already there, standing with a cane. He looked older. He nodded as Yuri approached. Together, they looked at the wall. The sun was warm. They are calling it the most effective diplomatic victory in history, Kim said softly. They say we changed the rules of the galaxy without firing a single shot in anger. Yuri reached out and touched the name Park Sumin. The stone was cool. They are wrong, she said. We fired one shot. The quietest shot ever fired. It just echoed. Differently. Kim nodded. He looked at the name Lee Jun. They tested us. They thought they were testing our capacity for war. Our willingness to burn worlds. Yuri looked up from the names, her gaze lifting to the clear blue sky, to the stars hidden behind the daylight. They were testing our capacity for mercy, she said. A small, sad smile touched her lips. They just never understood. Mercy has a spine made of unforgiving steel. A breeze rustled the leaves in the trees, a gentle, living sound. In the quiet of the garden, with the names of the lost before them, it was enough. The message had been sent. The lesson had been learned. And somewhere out there, in the endless dark, the memory of a white ship with a red cross would now be a shield for all the others that followed, its silence louder than any weapon. The silence on Zarkal Prime was absolute. It was not the quiet of night, but the deep, ringing silence of a machine that has stopped forever. The gray dust was everywhere. It coated the grand crystal towers, now just dark, fragile skeletons. It covered the dead vehicles in the streets. People moved through the dust like ghosts, their faces lit by torchlight or the weak light of the moon's dot in the first days. There was panic. Food distribution systems stopped. Water purification plants, which used crystalline filters, failed. Cities, built for flying travel, became isolated islands. The hegemony's leaders, used to instant communication and control, were blind and deaf. They hid in their dark spires, issuing orders that could not travel. On the ground, people like Kira began to understand the truth. The humans had not killed them. They had not bombed their cities into rubble. They had simply turned off the key. Everything that was advanced, everything that was Zarkonian, was gone. But as the dust settled, they began to see what was left. Kira returned to her neighborhood hub. It was useless for power now. But in the basement, she found old maintenance manuals. They were printed on thin sheets of metal, a backup from centuries ago. They showed diagrams for hydraulic pumps and steam vents, systems that had been sealed away when the crystal power took over. The pipes were still there, under the streets. They only ate the crystal, she said to a group of her neighbors, her voice hoarse from the dust. The old systems, the simple systems, they might still work. They were scared, but they were also engineers, builders, technicians. They had no choice. They began to dig. They opened old access hatches, their hands clumsy without their power tools. They found the old pipes, made of solid metal, untouched by the gray dust. Using the manuals, they managed to reroute water from an underground reservoir. It was cold, unfiltered water, but it was clean. When it gushed from an old fountain in the square, people cried. Word began to spread, not by communicator, but by runner. People on foot, carrying messages written on scraps. The old pumps work. Find the metal manuals. Look for the human aid boxes. This was the other discovery. In the chaos, storage warehouses had been broken into. Among the hegemony's sleek supplies were crates from the Galactic Aid Society. Most were human. They contained simple things: water purification tablets, bandages, nutrient bars, and basic medical kits. The tools inside were not powered. They were scissors, scalpels, hand-cranked radios. And they all worked perfectly. Kira held a human medical kit. It was made of plain green plastic. Inside, everything was simple, mechanical, effective. It was the opposite of everything her world had been. She realized the horrible, elegant lesson. The humans had broken everything that was them, and they had left behind, or the galaxy had sent long ago, the things that were human. The things that could keep them alive. In the dark command spire, Ambassador Talvek was starving. The automated kitchens did not work. The elevators were dead. He was too proud to climb down the hundreds of levels to where people were beginning to organize. He sat in his dark office, listening to the silence. The human words echoed in his mind. A place of reflection. He was reflecting. He was beginning to understand the cost of the symbol. High above, on the bridge of the Vengeance, Commander Park Yuri watched the planet. Her sensors could see the heat signatures of fires, the movement of crowds. She saw no signs of war machines restarting. She saw only the slow, painful struggle of a civilization trying to feed itself. Her communication officer turned. Commander, we are receiving a signal. It's weak on an old backup frequency. It's from the Zarkonian High Command. Audio only. Yuri nodded. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was raspy, desperate. It was not Talvek. It was a senior military officer. Human vessel. This is Zarkonian Command. Your weapon. It must be stopped. Our people are suffering. Our medical systems have failed. You must deactivate it. We acknowledge the incident with your medical ship. Yuri looked at the photo of her cousin. The incident has a name, she said, her voice cold over the channel. It is the GHS Nightingale. 2,143 names. Do you have them? There was a long silence. We do not. Learn them, Yuri said. Then we will talk. She cut the channel. She sat in her command chair, feeling the weight of the silence she was guarding. Her executive officer, a man named Jihun, approached. Commander, our long-range scans show potential for famine in the southern continent. Their food storage is rotting without cooling. Their distribution was all by air. Yuri closed her eyes. She saw Suman's face. Her cousin would have already been loading a shuttle with food. What are orders regarding aid? She asked. General Kim authorized discretionary aid to prevent mass death. The directive says, we will show them the difference. Yuri stood up. Then we show them. Prepare the cargo shuttles. Load them with the basic nutrient packs from our stores. No weapons. Just food and water purification units. Commander? Ji-hoon asked, surprised. After what they did? Especially because of what they did, Yuri said, her voice softer now. They turned healing into death. We will not turn punishment into murder. We will give them life in the middle of the silence we made. That is the lesson. Down on Zarkol Prime, Kira was helping to set up a clinic in an old hall. They were using human bandages and antiseptic. A child had a deep cut, and a human doctor on a hand-cranked video screen was talking Kira through the stitches. It was slow and frightening, but it was working. A shadow fell across the square. People looked up, terrified, thinking of more weapons. But what they saw were bulky, simple shuttles. They were painted white. On their sides, big red crosses glowed in the sunlight. The shuttles did not fire. They landed gently in an open plaza. The hatches opened. Human crew members in plain uniforms began to unload crates. They did not speak. They just stacked the crates neatly and placed a datapad on top. Then they got back in their shuttles and lifted off. Kira and others approached cautiously. The datapad had simple instructions in their language. Nutrient bars. 1 per person per day. Water tablets. 1 per liter. The food was bland, but it was full of energy. The tablets made the river water safe to drink. That night, for the first time since the silence fell, no one in Kira's district went to bed hungry or thirsty. They sat around small fires, eating the human food. The silence was still there, but it was different. It was no longer just the sound of their dead technology. It was also the sound of a terrible gift, a gift that shamed them more than any bomb ever could. A runner arrived, breathless, with a new message. It had been passed from district to district. The humans. They spoke to the high command. They said we must learn the names. The names from their healing ship. Kirao looked at the empty wrapper of a nutrient bar. She thought of the human doctor patiently guiding her hands to stitch a wound. For the first time, she wondered about the names of the people who had been on that ship. She wondered what they had been like. She looked at the dark, dead spire where her leaders were hiding. And she knew, in her heart, that the old way Talvek's way was as dead as the crystals. A new understanding was being born in the dust, and it was built on human food, human medicine, and the heavy, echoing silence of their absence. The world of Zarkol Prime was a place of sharp angles and hard light. Tall, crystalline buildings reached into a purple sky. Flying vehicles, powered by humming engines, moved in perfect silent lines between them. The air shimmered with the energy of a civilization at its peak. In the central command spire, Ambassador Talvek was being celebrated. A banquet was being held in a great hall, with windows that looked out over the glowing city. Important Zarkonians stood in groups, their gray skin looking polished in the light. They held glasses of glowing liquid. Talvek stood at the center, listening to a military commander praise his decisiveness. The human ship was a clear threat, the commander was saying. Your order to destroy it showed strength. It reminded the galaxy that the hegemony does not waver. Talvek gave a slow nod. They believe their soft symbols protect them. They use medicine as a shield. It is a weakness. We have shown them that in war there is only strength and weakness. Now they will complain to the Galactic Council. There will be talks. Nothing more. They are a species of talkers. In a lower part of the city, a young Zarkonian engineer named Kira was working. Her job was in a power distribution hub, a building that hummed like a giant beehive. She monitored the flow of energy through the city's crystalline grid. It was peaceful work. She liked the order of it. On a small screen at her station, a news feed showed the celebration for Talvek. She felt a flicker of unease. She had studied old human documents. She knew what their Red Cross symbol meant, but she said nothing. To question a victory was not done. High above the planet, where the stars were sharp and cold, space rippled. There was no flash, no roar of engines. One moment there was nothing. The next, a long dark shape hung against the blackness. It was like a cutout of a ship, absorbing all light. This was the UEF Vengeance. On its bridge, Commander Park Yuri looked at the glowing world below. It looked like a jewel. Her face showed no expression. Her crew worked quietly at their stations. The only sound was the soft beep of computers. "All systems are ready, Commander," her tactical officer said. "The Gorgon payload is armed. Swarm deployment sequence is green." Yuri did not answer right away. She looked at the small photo she had taped near her console. Two girls, smiling. Sumin's arm was around her shoulders. She reached out and touched the image gently. "Broadcast the message on all Zarkonian military frequencies first," Yuri said, her voice flat. As we discussed, a signal was sent. In the Great Hall on Zarkol Prime, the main viewing screen, which was showing images of the Hegemony's fleet, flickered. The celebration paused. Talvek frowned. Then a human face appeared on every screen in the room. It was General Kim De-young. His words were translated into their language. "People of the Zarkonian hegemony, you have broken the oldest law. You attacked a place of healing. You have chosen the path of silence. Now you will walk it." The message ended. The screen went back to the fleet images. There was a moment of confusion. Then Talvek snorted. "A threat. Empty words. They are trying to frighten us. Their fleet is days away. Our planetary shields are at full power. Let them come." The celebration slowly started again, though the noise was quieter now. On the Vengeance, Yuri watched the clock. "They have had their warning," she said. "Deploy the payload." A section of the dark ship opened. A single, sleek canister slid out. It did not fire down toward the planet like a missile. It simply fell, guided by small thrusters. It entered the high atmosphere of Zarkol Prime. At a precise altitude, it burst open. There was no explosion. It released a cloud of microscopic particles. The particles were so small they were invisible. They looked like dust. The wind of the upper atmosphere caught them and began to spread them in a thin, silent cloud across the entire planet. Kira, in her hub, was the first to notice. A soft alarm chimed on her console. She looked at it. It was a power fluctuation, a very small drop in output from the main generator. She tapped the screen to run a diagnostic. As she did, the number on her screen began to drop faster. It was not a failure. It was like something was eating the power. "What is happening?" She muttered. Then the lights in the hub flickered. Not just the lights. The hum of the building itself began to change. It dropped in pitch, becoming a sickly groan. The crystal columns in the room, which usually glowed with a soft blue light, started to dim. As Kira watched in horror, a gray spot appeared on the surface of the nearest column. It spread like frost on a window, but where it spread, the crystal turned dull and dark. It crumbled into a fine gray powder that dusted the floor. "No!" She shouted, but it was already happening everywhere. In the command spire, the celebration turned to panic. The lights went out completely, plunging the hall into darkness. The glowing drinks in their hands went dark. Outside the window, the city was changing. The lines of flying vehicles suddenly wobbled. Their engines sputtered and died. Dozens of them fell from the sky, not exploding, but crashing to the streets with heavy, silent thuds. The beautiful crystal towers of Zarkol Prime began to go dark, one by one, as the gray stain spread. It was not fire. It was not destruction. It was simply ending. The power grid failed. Every screen went black. Every communicator emitted a dead silence. The planet's orbital defense platforms, floating high above, went quiet and dark, their weapons frozen. Within 1 hour, the technological heart of the Zarkonian hegemony had stopped beating. Kira stumbled out of her building. The street was in chaos, but it was a strange, quiet chaos. People were running, but there were no sirens, no shouted orders from authorities, because no communications worked. The only light came from the planet's 2 moons, casting a pale glow on a scene from an ancient past. Ground vehicles were stopped in the streets, their engines dead. The only sounds were the cries of the people and the wind. High above, the Vengeance moved into a stable orbit. Yuri watched the planet go dark. City by city, continent by continent, the lights winked out. Soon, the only light from Zarkol Prime was the reflected moonlight on its oceans. It was a world sitting in a vast, silent room. Commander, the swarm has achieved full planetary coverage. Crystalline disintegration is confirmed across all major networks, a tactical officer reported. Yuri took a deep breath. Open the general frequency. The old radio band re-identified. Broadcast my voice. On the dark planet, in the ruins of the command spire, Talvek was trying to get a portable communicator to work. It was just a dead piece of crystal and metal in his hands. Suddenly, a crackle of static came from it. Then, a clear, translated voice echoed from every simple speaker, from every dead comms unit that still had a shred of power. It was a human voice, young and cold. It was Commander Park Yuri. People of Zarkol Prime, you fired upon a place of healing. You have been granted a place of reflection. Your lights are out. Listen now to the silence where our doctors' hearts used to beat. You have 6 months to think about what you have broken. The message ended. The static returned, then died. Talvek dropped the communicator. He looked out the broken window at his dark, silent world. For the first time, he felt true fear. This was not a battle. This was not a war. This was something he did not understand. He had expected anger, bombs, invasion. He had not expected this. Nothingness.Kira sat on the curb, listening to the silence. It was the deepest silence she had ever known. No hum of engines, no buzz of lights, no distant music. Just the wind and the frightened whispers of her people. She looked at the gray powder dusting her boots, all that was left of the crystal that powered her world. She thought about the human message, a place of healing. She thought about the human ship, the Nightingale, and wondered, for the first time, what had truly been on it. It didn't come in with a blaring siren or a flashing red alert. It arrived as a priority data stream, a cold clinical package of information. It landed first at the Lunar Comes Array, where a young technician named Ji-hun was drinking coffee. The system pinged, classifying it as a catastrophic loss medical vessel. His blood went cold. He opened the stream dot. It wasn't just coordinates and a ship ID. It was the Nightingale's final moments. The last readings from life support monitors, the internal audio logs, the security camera feeds that survived for a few seconds. It was raw, intimate, and horrible. Ji-hun watched a 10-second clip from a corridor camera. He saw a nurse, her face calm, rushing with an armful of oxygen masks before a wall of fire consumed the frame. He saw the biometric list scroll, name after name, human and alien, their heart rates spiking in terror before flatlining. At the end, he heard Captain Lee Jun's voice, steady to the very last word, cut off by a sound like the sky tearing apart. Ji-hun was suddenly sick onto the clean floor of his station. He forwarded the stream, his hands shaking, to Unified Earth Command in Seoul, deep underground. In a bunker carved beneath the old city, General Kim Dae-jung was finishing a report. He was a man who had seen many wars. His face was lined, his hair gray and cut short. He believed in rules. He believed that without rules, war was just butchery. The galactic conventions were one of those rules. He had helped write the parts about protecting medical ships. His aide, a serious young woman named Yoon-ji, walked into his office. She did not speak. She placed a datapad on his desk. Her face was pale. "Sir, the GHS Nightingale." Kim Dae-jung picked up the pad. He put on his reading glasses. He accessed the stream. For the next 20 minutes, the room was silent. The general did not move. He did not speak. He watched the videos. He listened to the audio. He read the list of the dead. He saw the name Park Soo-min, a brilliant surgeon he had once pinned a medal on. He saw the name Lee Jun, a captain known for his cool head. He saw the names of 43 children under the age of 10. When he finished, he took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly with a cloth. His hands were perfectly steady. He looked at Yoon-ji. "Confirmed?" "Lunar Command confirms the source is authentic." The Zirconian hegemony vessel, Fist of Retribution, was the only other ship in the area. Sensor ghosts from a nearby listening post show its weapon signature. There is no doubt. Kim Dae-jung nodded. He stood up. "Call the full global assembly, now." An hour later, he stood before them. Not on a screen, but in person, in the circular chamber. The faces of Earth's leaders looked back at him from their desks. He did not use holograms or dramatic displays. He simply played 47 seconds of the data stream, the final audio of Lee Jun, and the flatline that followed. The room was utterly, profoundly silent. Then the Zirconian message arrived. It was addressed to the Galactic Council, but a copy was sent to Earth. It appeared on screens around the chamber. The words were formal and cold. To the Galactic Council. A vessel of the human species was destroyed in the Viridia 3 combat zone after refusing hails and identified as a potential troop carrier violating ceasefire lines. Its destruction was a legal military action. The Zirconian hegemony regrets any loss of non-combatant life, should any have been present. The action stands. A roar of anger erupted in the chamber. People shouted. Some cried. Kim Dae-jung waited. He waited for the noise to die down. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner. "They have sent us 2 messages," he said. "The first is the truth. It is the sound of our people dying while they tried to save lives. The second is a lie. They call it a regret. They call it a military action." He paused, looking at every face. "They did not attack our strongest warship. They did not bomb a military base. They sought out and destroyed a ship that could not fight back, a ship that was healing their own wounded. They did not attack our strength. They attacked our soul. They have shown us the worth of their laws." He placed his hands flat on the podium. "Our response will teach them the weight of ours." A voice from the European bloc spoke up. "General, we must mobilize the fleet." "Show them we cannot be." "No," Kim interrupted, his tone final. "If we send the fleet, it becomes a war like any other. They will understand that. They expect that. They will see it as a game they know how to play. More ships will burn. More will die. It becomes a cycle. That is not justice. That is just more noise." "Then what?" asked the North American representative. "We must make them understand the precise value of what they broke," Kim said. "They broke a place of healing, of quiet, of mercy. Our retaliation will not be loud. It will be quiet. It will not be fire. It will be silence." He gestured to Yoon-ji. A schematic appeared in the air above him. It was a sleek, dark ship, unlike any other. For 5 years, a secret division has been working on a deterrent, a weapon for an unthinkable scenario. That scenario has happened. This is the UEF Vengeance. Its payload is not explosive. It is called the Gorgon system. The schematic zoomed in on a warhead. Zirconian technology is based on a unique crystalline compound. It is in their power grids, their engines, their computers, their communicators. It is the bedrock of their civilization. The Gorgon deploys a nanite swarm tiny machines. They are programmed for one task, to disassemble that specific crystal at a molecular level. The process is clean. It is not a poison. It is not radioactive. It simply turns their advanced technology into inert gray sand. The chamber was dead quiet. You would send them back to the Dark Ages? Someone whispered. I would send them to a quiet room, Kim corrected, where they can think about what they have done. The swarm is self-limiting. It will become inert after 6 months. Their knowledge will remain. Their people will live. But for 6 months, their lights will be off. Their ships will not fly. Their guns will not fire. They will sit in the dark with only their thoughts and the memory of the people they murdered on the Nightingale. He looked around. This is not an act of war in their language. It is an act of correction, a punishment that fits the crime. They created silence where there was life. We will give them silence where there was power. The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. Operation Serpent's Mercy was authorized. 2 days later, General Kim stood in the orbital dock overlooking the Vengeance. It was a shadow, absorbing light. Commander Park Yuri saluted him. She was young for such a command, but her file was impeccable. She was also the cousin of Park Suman. The mission parameters are clear, Commander, Kim said, his voice low. You will go to Zarkol Prime. You will deploy the Gorgon payload in high atmosphere. You will then broadcast the prepared message. You will not engage any ships. You will not fire upon any living target. Is that understood? Perfectly, sir, Yuri said. Her face was like stone. This is a terrible thing we are doing, Kim said, watching her. Do you understand why we must do it? Yuri's eyes met his. In them, he saw cold fire. She pulled a small photo from her pocket. It showed her and Suman as teenagers, laughing on a beach. I understand the price of mercy, General. I also understand that some people only understand strength. She put the photo away. We will make them understand the strength of our silence. Good luck, Commander. As Kim watched the Vengeance slide out of the dock and disappear into the black, he felt no triumph. Only a heavy, cold certainty. He returned to his bunker. On his desk was a final list from the Nightingale. He looked at the names. He did not see soldiers. He saw a nurse who played the piano for patients. He saw a doctor who grew tomatoes in a hydroponic lab. He saw a captain who loved old Earth poetry. He turned off the lights in his office and sat in the dark. He waited, thinking about the quiet that was coming. The space around Viridia 3 was quiet now. The war had moved on, leaving behind a planet scarred by laser, burns and littered with the broken remains of tanks and ships from 2 different species. In the cold dark, a single ship glided silently, its hull a spotless, reflective white. Bright red crosses, taller than a person, were painted on its sides and along the top. A green serpent coiled around a staff was marked near its bow. This was the galactic humanitarian ship Nightingale. It was a hospital, a place of peace. Inside, the lights were soft. The air smelled clean, like antiseptic and recycled oxygen. Gentle chimes sounded now and then, calling a nurse or a doctor. The wide corridors were busy with people in simple blue uniforms. They pushed carts of medicine or guided floating stretchers where patients lay quietly. The patients were different. Some were human, with bandages on their arms or faces. Others were Zarkonian, their gray, four-armed forms resting under soft blankets. There were even a few from other worlds, all hurt, all receiving care. Captain Li Jun walked slowly down one of these corridors. He was a man who moved with a calm purpose. His dark hair was neat, and his uniform was perfectly pressed. He held a datapad in his hand, but his eyes were on his crew and his patients. He stopped by an open doorway. Inside, a young Zarkonian soldier lay on a bed. One of its four arms ended in a bandaged stump. A human woman in a doctor's coat was checking a screen above its head. "Head Surgeon Park Suman," Li Jun said, his voice low and even. Suman looked up. She had a kind face, but her eyes were tired. She had been in surgery for 12 hours straight. "Captain," she said, offering a small smile, "our guest is stable. The infection from the battlefield shrapnel is gone. It will live." Li Jun nodded. "Good. Its people said it was a fierce fighter. Now it will get to go home." He looked at the sleeping alien. It seemed peaceful. "Do they ever understand that we help them even when their side shoots at our freighters?" Suman wiped her hands on a cloth. "I don't think they need to understand, Captain. They just need to heal. That's the rule. The oldest human rule there is. You help the hurt. You don't ask who they are first." She walked out into the hall with him. "The children's ward is full again. Mostly human refugees from the Viridia colonies. A lot of burned cases." They walked together, their steps soft on the clean floor. Li Jun looked at his datapad. "Supplies are low. The next Earth convoy is 4 days away. We must make do." He didn't sound worried, just stating a fact. "Tell the cooks to make more soup," Suman said, a faint smile returning. "Soup stretches, and it's good for the soul." They reached the main observation lounge. The wall here was a giant window, showing the blackness of space and the sad, round ball of Viridia 3 below. A few medical staff sat in chairs, drinking tea, staring out at the stars. It was a quiet moment, a safe moment. On the bridge, which was much smaller than on a warship, the moon was the same. Officers monitored communication channels and navigation sensors. Their job was not to look for enemies, but to listen for distress calls, to plot courses to the next war zone that needed a hospital. A young officer, Choi Min, was on the long-range scanner. "Captain to the bridge," Choi Min said, his voice calm but alert. Li Jun arrived a minute later. "Report. One contact, Captain. Just appeared from a warp jump. Bearing 320. It's a Zarkonian Crow-class vessel. The Fist of Retribution." Li Jun felt a cold trickle in his stomach. The Crow-class was a heavy battlecruiser, a ship made for breaking planets. It had no business here in a neutral medical zone. "Open a channel. Broad spectrum. Send our identification and humanitarian status." "Send it again in Zarkonian battle code." "Yes, sir." A message was sent. The words were simple. "This is the galactic humanitarian ship Nightingale. We are a medical vessel operating under Galactic Convention 12. We are neutral. We are caring for wounded from all sides. Our coordinates are attached. Please acknowledge. Silence. The Fist of Retribution did not answer. On the screen, the warship was a dark, jagged shape against the stars. It was turning, slowly. Its front end, which was full of heavy plasma cannons, was aligning with the Nightingale. "Send it again," Li Jun said, his voice hardening. "Sent, sir." No response. They are powering their primary weapons array." A deep hum vibrated through the ship. It was not their own engine. It was the sound of a massive energy buildup, transmitted through the very fabric of space. The lights on the bridge flickered. On the battlecruiser, Ambassador Talvek watched the little white ship on his own screen. He was an old Zarkonian, his skin like rough stone. A junior officer, its voice nervous, spoke up. "Ambassador, the vessel's markings match the human. Red Cross and Rod of Asclepius, symbols for a non-combatant medical nonsense." Talvik interrupted, his voice a dry rasp. "The humans are clever. They hide soldiers and weapons in these hospital ships. They think their silly symbols are a shield. It is a trick, a sign of their weakness." He waved a hand. "The Viridia sector is cleansed. This vessel is an anomaly. Remove it." On the Nightingale, alarms began to blare. A loud, piercing sound that shattered the quiet. "Energy spike. Massive levels. They are targeting us." Choi Min shouted. Lei Jun hit the all-ships intercom. His voice was calm, but it carried through every corridor, every room. "All hands. This is the captain. Brace for impact. This is not a drill. Medical teams, secure your patients. Now." In the children's ward, Suman was helping a little girl with a bandaged face back into her bed. She heard the captain's voice. She heard the raw fear in it, buried under the calm. She looked at the nurse across from her. "Get the restraint fields on. Hold them down." She looked out the window. For a second, she saw it. A tiny, brilliant blue star, born in the distance. It grew bigger. Fast. There was no sound in space. But inside the ship, the sound was the end of the world. The plasma lance, a spear of energy hot enough to melt battle steel, hit the Nightingale amidships. It did not hit the engine room or the bridge. It hit the main medical bay, the very heart of the ship. The hull, which was not armored, vaporized. The white metal turned to gas. The blast tore through 3 decks. It sucked out operating rooms, recovery wards, and a pharmacy into the freezing vacuum. One moment, there were people. The next, there was nothing. The ship shuddered and screamed. Lights died. Gravity failed. The air became a roaring hurricane, pulling everything toward the hole. Li Jun was thrown against his command chair. He felt a sharp pain in his leg. Alarms were screaming everywhere. The bridge was dark, lit only by red emergency strips. "Report!" He yelled over the noise. Choi Min was gone. His station was a melted ruin. Another officer, Kim Hana, was bleeding from her forehead. "Main medical is gone. Decks 4 through 7 are open to space. Life support is failing. We are breaking apart, Captain." Li Jun knew what he had to do. The ship was dying. His voice was raw now. He opened the channel again. "All hands. Abandon ship. Repeat, abandon ship. Get to the life pods. Help the patients if you can." He took a painful breath. "God be with you." He turned to Kim Hana. "You too, go." "What about you, Captain?" "I have to send the final beacon." She hesitated, then Li Jun dragged himself to the communication panel. It was cracked, but it still worked. He activated the emergency distress beacon. It would send out a signal with the ship's final data, its location, its logs, and, because it was a medical ship, it sent the final biometric feeds from the crew and patients still wearing monitors. It was a stream of data ending in flat lines. He opened a voice channel. He spoke as the ship groaned and bucked around him. He spoke to the silent, listening universe. "This is GHS Nightingale. We are a hospital ship. We are under fire. We have children aboard. Cease." A second, smaller explosion rocked the bridge. The ceiling collapsed. The last thing the beacon sent was the sound of tearing metal, and then the sudden, perfect silence of Captain Li Jun's stopped heart dot in the children's ward. The restraint fields had held. The little girl was crying. Park Suman was lying across 2 beds. shielding the children with her own body. The wall next to her was gone. She looked out into the star-filled blackness, feeling the air rush past her. She didn't feel scared. She felt a deep, sad anger. She held onto the little girl's hand as the last of the air left her lungs, and the cold took her. The nightingale broke in two. The pieces, once white and clean, tumbled end over end. Debris spread out like a cloud. Among the twisted metal floated frozen bodies in blue uniforms, pieces of medical equipment, and torn blankets. A single, unbroken teddy bear spun slowly. Forever. The fist of retribution hung in the darkness for a moment. Then it turned smoothly and jumped back into warp, leaving only ruin behind. The beacon's signal raced across space. It was more than a call for help. It was a record of heartbeats that turned to stillness, of panicked breaths that faded to nothing. It was the sound of 2,143 acts of mercy, violently interrupted. The signal reached a relay station, then another, moving faster than light. It shot toward a blue-green planet, waiting in its own quiet corner of the galaxy. The message was coming home.